Darwin explicitly said that was not true, and then he used language throughout his book that suggested it was true.
Does nature act as an agent, selecting, scrutinizing, retaining, and are organisms just replicators trying to maximize their reproductive success? This is the story that's been told to us for generations, ever since Darwin's Origin of Species. But are the analogies misleading? What if the purpose of organisms is not to reproduce, but if reproduction is just a means of achieving their real purpose? So these were some ideas shared by computer scientist and enterprise architect Steve Laufmann. Let's hear what he has to say about it.
Chaos theory.
Reality.
My name is Steve Laufmann. I'm a computer scientist by training, an engineer by wiring, and an enterprise architect by profession. So I design large-scale systems of systems with thousands of systems and tens of thousands of subsystems, and try to get them all to behave in a way that's coherent. And more importantly, most of my career was trying to change systems that are already semi-coherent into something different. And those are really hard problems as well. So then that kind of brought me to this evolution thing, because evolutionists believe that change is easy. And I know that's just not true. Changing one working system into a different working system is extraordinarily hard. And that's why a lot of consultants make a lot of money when a company wants to do that. You want to change something that they've got into something different. You want to create a new model at the Maserati factory. That's not a simple thing to do. You create a new version of the iPhone, which has a different shape. And, these are really hard problems. There's a reason there's thousands of engineers working on these things. I did the design. I tried to avoid doing the work because that's way too hard. So when I took my professional life, my career, and I started looking at living systems, it just blows my mind. It was, the information systems and the kind of systems I've dealt with are kind of boring compared to life. Life is really, really interesting. And so I kind of switched gears about 12 years ago. So I work only on living systems now. It doesn't pay very well, but hey, there you have it.
So you mentioned you had some slides in your talk, and you said function is not purpose. The goal of the organism is not to survive, but it survives in order to achieve its purpose. What did you mean by that, and what do you think its purpose is?
Well, so I'm pretty sure I posed that as a question. What if that was the case? So what in the world makes us think that survival is the goal? Well, Darwin said that it has to be the goal. But what if Darwin was wrong? What if survival is not the goal? Reproduction is not the goal? That organisms have a separate purpose, and that survival and reproduction are the problems they have to solve to achieve their purpose. Right? So you can think of life as a set of problems that all have to be solved or life ceases to exist. And again, our book points out a large number of those situations. But if you don't solve those problems, if you have any higher purpose, any other purpose at all, that purpose cannot be fulfilled. Right? So that's what we're trying to do, is get people to think about this in a different way. So what we're aiming for is, what's the purpose? So what I use to illustrate this is a bolt, a machine bolt, and how a machine bolt has a function. Its function is designed to be part of a fastener, right? So, and then I showed a cutaway parts diagram of a lawnmower, and the bolt is holding the wheel on the lawnmower, right? So the bolt offers its function as a fastener to the lawnmower, and the lawnmower offers purpose to the bolt. Now the bolt has a purpose because its purpose is to hold a wheel on a larger machine. So what you have is function exists at one level in a design hierarchy, so having a fastener, but the purpose is one level higher in the design hierarchy. So the purpose is, we're going to build a machine that can cut grass, right? So before that bolt was used on the lawnmower, it had no purpose. It had a function, but it didn't have a purpose. So that same bolt could probably have been used to put an Atlas V rocket together. That Atlas V rocket would give the bolt its purpose. So does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. Thank you. All right.
A long explanation for a simple idea.
You also said that life is not simple and nature is not an agent.
Yeah, well, those are related but separate ideas, right? So life is not simple, but if you're a Darwinist, life has to be simple because it came from non-life. It just spontaneously arrived somehow. But life is not simple. Being alive, in my view, is one of the two hardest engineering problems in the universe. How do you be alive? I mean, if you look at it from a problem-solving perspective, you got to solve dozens and dozens of really hard problems. The other hard problem is reproduction. How do you make a new one? That's a huge problem. So that's why life was never simple. Life is not simple now. Life will never be simple. But we've been conditioned to think that life started so simple that it was easy, right? Life was never easy. It's always been hard. It will always be hard. It takes a lot of stuff to make it work. Another facet of Darwin's logic was that this property he called natural selection was the driving force that made life more complex. And although that's never been demonstrated, that it could ever do anything new, it makes nature look like an agent. So if you read Darwin's Origin, he talks about it. He kind of personifies natural selection, all the while claiming it's not an agent. Even the term natural selection sounds like it's actually cognitive and it's making a choice. But he explicitly said that was not true. And then he used language throughout his book that suggested it was true. So he did this little rhetorical trick with natural selection, and that's confused generations of people since then. And it is confusing because it was intended to be confusing. So claim something's not true, but use language which suggests that it is true. So nature can really only do two things. It can enable life to happen. So it's fine-tuned. The forces of chemistry and physics are fine-tuned specifically to make life possible. But nature itself can't do anything to make life happen. So all nature does, it does enable life to exist. It makes it possible, but it also constrains life. So nature makes life possible. And as I just said, nature makes life hard. It's a very hard set of problems to solve. So it essentially constrains life. There's not very many ways you can arrange matter that would make them alive, right? So it makes it possible and makes it hard. So that means somebody else has to come along and solve the problems, right? And that's why we talk about intelligent actions as the only way you can do that.
Chaos theory.